Welcome, everyone, to the 5,355th meeting of the Rotary Club of San Jose. It's a beautiful Wednesday here in downtown San Jose. I'd like to welcome everybody here and on Zoom, and of course, especially to thank the Fun and Friendship Committee, headed by Doug Smith, for welcoming us all. You may have noticed there are also some tables up there where you can sign up for firesides. Doug's going to be coming up in a couple of minutes to talk a little bit more about that. But right now, let's have our red badgers with the traveling mics introduce themselves. I see one right there.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Robin. I have been a red badger for, I think, the last 2 months, although I've been coming to meetings for the last year. My sponsors are Mike Conniff and Steve Borkenhagen, the artist formerly known as President Steve. And I run a nonprofit farm animal rescue called Rancho Robin Rescues in the East Hills of San Jose.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And over here.
I'm Robert Davis. My sponsor is Catherine Tompkinson, and I work at San Jose State as the Veterans Counselor and Certifying Official, so I handle all the GI Bill.
Great. Thank you, Robert. All right. Visiting Rotarians and guests, please stand up to be introduced. And we're going to start right over here with Dick Conniff.
Hello, President Sal. Dick Conniff, Community Banking. It's my pleasure to introduce Robert Massey as my guest again. He is the new General Director of Symphony San Jose.
Great. Thanks for coming again, Robert. Welcome. Way in the back there.
Yeah, President Sal, good to see you again. This week my guest is Joss Sickle, who is a retired pathologist.
Great to have you again as well. Welcome.
President Sal, Larry Donatoni, Santa Clara University. It's my pleasure to introduce my guest, Robin Petrini, who's the Senior Director for Development for the Athletic Department at Santa Clara University.
Welcome. Thank you for being here. Heather Lerner.
Hi, Sal. Oh, that's a little, need some work there. This is my guest, Suzanne Wolf. You've seen her a few different times over the weeks, and we're hoping to get that badge switched from guest to something even more improved. Suzanne Wolf, City of Fremont.
Suzanne, great to have you here from Fremont. And in the back there.
President Sal, Ray Zeckman, Clean Solar and Clean Roofing. I have a special guest here today that I hadn't seen in 6 or 7 years, was walking to Whole Foods. We both had our masks on, didn't recognize each other. And then I texted him and said, was that you? And it was, and so now we're together. This is Ken Sessions. He's from Kaleo Pharmaceuticals.
Great. Welcome, Ken.
And Ken informed me he also owns a kilt, so
oh, so even more than
we should have more kilts.
Okay, and that looks like that's about it. So great. At this point, I would like to call up our Fun and Friendship Chair, Doug Smith, to talk to you about firesides.
All right, thank you. So we have firesides coming up pretty quickly here on the week of August 21st. Again, the idea of the firesides is just a social opportunity for us to develop our camaraderie and friendship with everybody. We have some spectacular Rotary members. Where's my next slide? We have some spectacular, just some ideas of the fun you can have with the Fun and Friendship. Just look at the big smile on Ron's face. It's something worthwhile going to. So our first event we're going to have the Sean O'Kane's Irish Pub. We're going to have music and food. And if you want to bring a swimsuit, hop in the pool. So on Monday, August 21st, be a great time. Then, as you saw from Matt, we have we're going to go to the farm, to the farm night at the Rancho Robin Rescues. We'll get to see his operation up there, but most of all, we're just going to hang out and enjoy the night air, the spectacular views from the East San Jose foothills. And then we're going to come back down to on Thursday, August 25th. We're going to appreciate the hard work everyone put into rebuilding the deck at the Gordon House. We're going to have a little potluck and some games out there. This one I think should be, actually a lot of them should be family friendly, and if you want to bring your kids. So I hope to see you sign up. There's a table out here to sign up. There will be, for people on the Zoom, there will be a link in the next bulletin. Also a link, I believe, will be at the club website. So you have no excuse for not signing up. Sal, which ones have you signed up for?
I have not signed up for any yet, but I am planning on signing up for at least 2.
All right.
So find out which ones I'm gonna get. I'll give you a hint. I'm not bringing a swimsuit anywhere though. Okay. And especially, you're going to love seeing all the new deck of the Gordon House. It looks great. It is. When I was there yesterday, it's almost done, but it'll be ready for August 25th. So, moving on, we have another Robin coming up. And I'm not going to step on her too much to say, if you remember our talk a couple of weeks ago with Michael Ogilvie, the Public Art Director of San Jose, well, it inspired one of our members to do something really cool. Here's Emily to tell you about it.
Great. Hi, thank you for joining me at phase 1 of my campaign for Rotary Rookie of the Year. Just kidding. So you remember a couple weeks ago, Michael Ogilvie, the director of San Jose Community Art, came and spoke to us and talked to us about over 150 pieces of public art that are available all around the city of San Jose. And Carl had asked about, is there a list or a map or something? And indeed, there is a list of all of the works of art on this website, sanjoseca.gov, but no map. So I went ahead and made a map. We'll share the link with you, but I just want to show it to you and orient you a little because it's not as intuitive as Google Maps. So this is a screenshot of what the map looks like. Each flag represents a piece of artwork. Blue is libraries and community centers, yellow is fire stations, and red is everything else. Here's just a zoom in. For example, we're kind of currently right now in the middle of this map, so you can see there's tons of art walking distance from pretty much wherever you are. If you click on one of the flags, it'll give you a little bit more detail, the title of the artwork and where exactly it is, and an address. I just want to give you a couple of tiny caveats. I hand entered all of it, so if there's typos, please forgive me. And it's kind of a rudimentary mapping program, so I couldn't do like tildes and accents and stuff, so some of the names don't look exactly how they're intended to look. Some of the addresses are also approximate, like a statue in the middle of a park. I just had to pick an address that was close to the park. So if it doesn't look 100% right, just double check on the sanjoseca.gov website. So hopefully we can all plan some outings together to do a little tour and see all the art. Link to be shared later today.
Later today in the bulletin, and we'll have it, probably throw it up on the chat.
Great.
Too.
Vote for me, Rookie of the Year.
Wait, Emily, I have a question. Before you run off, I have a question. So when you were doing this, and it took her like 150 hours to do all this, I think, did you discover any public art that you didn't know existed? And you were like, wait, what is this?
Most of it, I had no idea. And actually, Matt and I have been passing by. There's a fire station on Alum Rock Ave. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a mural right here. They're right before your eyes. You don't even realize it.
Okay, for those of you on Zoom who couldn't hear her, there's a fire station on Alum Rock Avenue with a mural that she didn't realize that it's there, and they drive by it all the time. So that is really cool. Another fun, interesting event that we have coming up is an environmental summit, and we've got Deanna Persai coming up to tell you all about that.
Emily, you super have my vote. Vote number 1. We have a very lovely event coming up that we would love to see you all at. It is going to be on Saturday, September 10th at the Santa Clara County Board Chambers. You can go to the next slide. Do I advance the slides? There we go. It's called the Environmental Summit Green Transportation and Clean Energy Summit. This has been a labor of love. We've been working on it for months and months, and it's really coming together. This is a collaborative project between our wonderful Rotary Club of San Jose, the Santa Clara County Board Chambers, where the event's going to be. We do have flyers on your table, as I see Steve Prouty glossing over. Thank you, Mr. Steve. The Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group, and of course, District 5170. A real thanks to District Governor Savita for helping us out. Our keynote speakers include the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, and our own former San Jose Rotarian, Nuria Fernandez, who is a senior federal transit administrator with the U.S. Department of Transportation. The cost is just $20. The event's going to be a half a day of 2 panels, a green transportation panel and a clean energy panel. There we go, with refreshments for breakfast and lunch. And in the afternoon, we're going to have exhibits around the community. Oh, here are our list of panels. It's quite an amazing list of panelists internationally. It is going to be a hybrid event, so you will be able to zoom in through a Zoom webinar if you want. But it's really quite an impactful day. And our moderators are our own Dr. Serena Alexander from the Mineta Transportation Institute is one of our moderators, and the second moderator for clean energy is going to be Carrie Hall, who is a meteorologist at NBC. So we're going to have this information up, and the registration link is going to go live by tomorrow with a QR code. And then in the afternoon, we have 3 experiential events that you can attend, some tours. So we have guided tours. So we're going to have a tour to the Valley Transportation Authority's new multimodal Berryessa BART station. We're going to have a tour to the Caltrain's just finished overhead catenary system at the San Jose Diridon station for their new electric trains. And then, of course, Tesla's massive state-of-the-art Fremont manufacturing. We're going to have buses to take you to and fro. So about 1:30, they'll have 45 available seats per bus. This has been a beautiful labor of love, and I just have to do an amazing shout out to past President Rod Diridon for really doing the heavy lifting and bringing this all together. He got us the Santa Clara County Board Chambers for this event. I'd like to thank our upcoming president, Dr. Karen Philbrick, with the Mineta Transportation Institute for being one of our ground floor sponsors. Sean O'Kane from Big Kahuna Productions has put together an amazing 30 and 60-second public service announcement. Our very own Rotarian Leah Schnorr has secured a full circle catering with Hunger at Home, who's going to provide the plant-based refreshments. That was it's all plant-based, sorry. And then, of course, Maggie Padavani with Padavani PR at the district level is doing an amazing job helping to get the word out. So we're so excited about this event, and we encourage and welcome you all to join us. We are looking for more exhibitors and vendors who'd like to share their products and services to help us with the clean energy environment. We're part of the Climate Action Committee, and this event is for our children and grandchildren to make sure that we ensure a sustainable future for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. And I'll tell you, I've been sort of watching behind the scenes as this summit has been coming together over the past few months. Just an amazing amount of work. We want this to be a really huge success. You can't imagine what they went into to get Nancy Pelosi to speak here in San Jose. It's a huge get for us. They've been really working hard, and I hope all of you who are able to can either attend or appreciate it from a Zoom level if you need to. Okay, moving on. Got a bunch of fun stuff to do. I am introducing a new little feature, an occasional feature to our meetings that I am calling Salutations. Can't be Rotary President if you're not willing to make fun of yourself sometime, right? So what this is where ring the bell is something where you get up and say something that you're proud of, that involves you personally. This is more other people ratting you out for good deeds you've done. And it costs no money on either end. This is just really to recognize our Rotarians for stuff they do in the community and within our club. So with that, the first salutation I'm giving, and I guess I should throw this out there. So if you know something that someone's done, feel free to send me a note. Let Leslie know. We will get them in. If I end up doing 2, 3, 4, 5 of these every month, every week, all's the better. But we're starting with one, and that is Sharon Whaley. Yes, let's hear it for Sharon. She might be on Zoom. But so Sharon works for San Jose Water Company, and if you weren't aware, every year they would have this really great barbecue out on reservoir land, and it's a fantastic event. Well, they're not having it this year. They haven't had it for a couple of years, and they wanted to put that money toward good causes that they would normally spend on this. That's a really smart thing to do, very nice of them, very generous. And so Sharon, also smart and generous, raised her hand and said, could we get $15,000 of that to go to Washington schools? She's on the Los Amigos to Washington School Committee. Can we get $15,000 of that to go to Washington School to help send 75 fifth graders to science camp at Camp Campbell this year? And San Jose Water said, yes, that is happening. And not only is that great for Washington and those fifth graders, but it's going to end up helping the whole school, because some of the funds they would have devoted to science camp, they're actually going to get to put towards other needs for the rest of the school. So let's hear it for Sharon. What a wonderful thing. Again, if you know some little things about our Rotarians that they've done in the community, please let me know and we will share them up here. But speaking of the Los Amigos Committee, they recently had an event, a party at the Santa Clara Train Station Museum. If you haven't been there, it is one of the most fun places to go, especially if you have kids or grandchildren who might be into transportation. They had an auction item that they auctioned off at the last gala. Josh Burrows bought it, and it was an event there, a dinner, and I'm just going to show you some pictures so you can see how much fun they had. This is a great example, again, of our committees coming together, doing something with the community and introducing Rotarians and other people to a new place. So you can see the different, it's basically modeling off of an old train car, and the station itself is beautiful. Got a typewriter there. I love old typewriters. You got a little kitchen. There's some of the history of the area, and even, of course, you can see the outside of the station. You've got the train car there, and here's the whole group. They had a great time, and here's some more members of the committee. So let's hear it for Los Amigos for having a great event there. This is what happens. Our auction gala is so much fun every year, and sometimes we don't know, well, what happens at these events that get auctioned off. And I know I'm hosting one. I'm reminding Steve Ellenberg right now, hosting one October 1st that you're part of, so let's make sure we have that on the calendar. But these things do eventually get done, and they are really a lot of fun for the people who buy them and for the committees that put them on. Okay, speaking of Rotarians doing great things in the community, in this case, not in our community, our group is in Vietnam right now for the Roy Russell school ribbon cutting. They arrived, the majority of the group arrived on Monday, and here's a picture of them that they took just yesterday morning. And here they are. You can see a lot of our friends there. Mark McKenna, of course, Mike Conniff, and here they are out front. I think this is out front of the school. So, and we're going to get a full report from them when they return. They're back next week, 2 weeks, and we'll get something from them probably in September. So we'll look forward to that. Let's see, we're going to skip ahead. And in fact, Larry, we're going to skip ahead straight to you. So if you were starting a little bit early, you got a little bit of extra time, Mike, but Larry Donatoni to introduce our speaker today.
Thank you, President Sal and fellow Rotarians. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce our program for today. You may have seen him officiating football games. You may have heard him as a commentator for Fox Sports, clarifying the officiating for NFL or college games, football games. You may have even seen him or played against him when he played baseball in the college. A little known fact about Mike is that he never played football, although he did play baseball during his years at Santa Clara University. Clearly, football officiating is a passion for today's speaker, Mike Pereia. In 1982, Mike began his career with NCAA Division I football, officiating the Big West, followed by Pacific West conferences. His career with the NFL began in 1998, eventually being promoted to Vice President of NFL officiating in 2004. In 2010, marked Mike leaving the NFL for a newly created position at Fox Sports. You will regularly see him as a contributor to Fox NFL Sunday and various Fox college football broadcasts, addressing questions about officiating. Today, we will hear football stories, certainly, yet you will hear about Mike's legacy passion. In 2017, he launched Battlefields to Ballfields to give veterans the resources and opportunity to be sports officials, helping them to get their lives back on track. Another little-known fact that may prompt some questions from our group is that Mike is a member of the Anchorage, Alaska Glacier Pilots Hall of Fame. All said, let's extend a big Rotary welcome to our speaker, Mike Pereia.
Thank you very much. I want to give a salutation out in advance to a member here who's done incredible work today. I tried to get here early so that I want to make sure I was on time. And I actually pulled into the parking lot at right about 11:20, thinking I was in great shape. I pulled out and went to what I thought was where this meeting was going to be. And I thought, how in the hell are they going to have a meeting in this building? And I looked at Larry Donatoni, who I want to give a salutation to, who wrote that the meeting was at 88 South 2nd Street. And so therefore I roamed 2nd Street for about 20 minutes, as a matter of fact, before I finally called him and he said, it's 4th Street. Our club meets at 88 South 2nd Street in San Jose. 15 yards is not an appropriate penalty. Ejection is it's great to be here. I drove in from Sacramento. It's probably the longest ride that I've had to speak to a Rotary group. I think I've spoken to everyone in Sacramento where I live, and it's always a treat for me to be involved and to spend a little time with service organizations. You know, to me, it's been these service organizations have been tough to keep going. Younger people have a tougher time committing to making the time commitment to do so. So it's great for me to get the opportunity to speak to you. I'm going to talk about football. I do have a couple extra minutes, which is great. But I also want to talk about life and my thoughts of my own as I tried to find a purpose in life. And I think that every life is a book. Every one of our lives is a book. And there's 10 chapters. We can write 9. But but we probably can't write chapter 10. Chapter 10 at the end is going to be something that somebody is going to write about us. And I look at my life and I say, as I write my book, it would be my second one, by the way. Don't waste your time getting the first one. And I'm not selling the second one. My first one was such a good seller that I was putting on a golf tournament, and I said, there was 120 people, and I called the publisher, and I said, is there any chance that there would be 120 of these left that I could give out as a tea prize? And the response was, which pallet would you like us to count? So that was the story of my first book. But my life started, or was most affected by my father, who at age 15, when I was playing American Legion baseball in Lodi, California, a game at Lawrence Stadium in the summer, 103 degrees, unbelievably hot. I went 0 for 3, dropped 2 pop-ups as a first baseman. Game was over, and all I wanted was a drink. And I went to my dad and I said, will you buy me a Coke? He looked right at me and said, you are not worth the quarter it takes to buy a Coke. And it was interesting because at the time, I don't think it really affected me. But soon after, it started to drive my life, because all of a sudden I wanted to prove my father wrong. I wanted to prove to my father that I was worth the quarter it took to buy a Coke. And so I started on my pursuit to find it. Was it academics? No, can't say I was not a very good student. I was a good Pedro player at Santa Clara, playing cards, but I wasn't a good student. Was it athletic ability? No, I mean, I am in the Glacier Pilots Hall of Fame, which is the summer baseball program up there, and I did play baseball at Santa Clara, but I'm in the Hall of Fame, and if you go, this is in the early 1970s, if you go on their website right now, I still own the all-time records for most hits, most runs, most walks, most stolen bases, which is pretty impressive. And I tell people, you know, that league is really good because everybody plays 1 year. They're so good, everybody plays 1 year and then signs. I said, just don't look at the record for most games played, because I played for 4 years and never signed, was never good enough to sign. So that's why I'm in the Hall of Fame, because I wasn't as good as the other players. So it wasn't the athletics, it wasn't business. I tried. But while at Santa Clara in my junior year, a guy came to me and said, would you like to officiate some football games? I said, are you kidding me? No way. No, I would not. And he goes, why? I said, I don't want to. I just don't want to. And he said, your father officiated. I said, I know he did. Maybe that's why I don't want to. Think about it. I saw him yelled at. And so I said, I don't want to. He goes, it's Pop Warner football in Ravenswood at East Palo Alto. I said, I don't care if it's in my own backyard. I don't want to do it. He said, it's $10 a game. $10 a game, 3 games on a Sunday, $30 cash. I said, well, maybe I do want to do it. So I literally started officiating for the money, for the $30. But the interesting thing, when I went and did my first game at Ravenswood at the high school there, I walked out on the field with a bunch of these little kids running around, and parents were yelling at me. And it was like somebody somehow stuck a syringe in my arm and pumped me full of adrenaline. It just hit me. And I felt like maybe this is it. Maybe this is what I can do to prove my dad wrong. So I started in '72, and then, as you heard Larry said, went through the college ranks, officiated on the field in the NFL for 2 years. And the cute little off story is when I went through the whole process of trying to become an official, you go through an FBI background check. You have to go through a psychological test, which I was sure that I wasn't going to get in after that. And my father went through the whole process with me. You know, he worked with me in Sacramento in a little store that we had, and he would open all the mail that came from the NFL before I did, even though it was addressed to me. And so one day I got a call from New York, from the office, and saying that I was in, that they were hiring me to officiate in the NFL. The pinnacle. The pinnacle. So Jerry Seaman, who was the guy that called me, he said, don't tell anybody. I said, I mean, don't tell anybody. I mean, can I tell my dad? I said, okay, you can tell your dad. So I called Van Buskirk Golf Course, where he was going out to play golf. Felix Clavern was the pro. I remember it like it yesterday. I said, is my dad there? And he goes, not yet. I said, well, tell him to call the store immediately when he gets there. Everything's okay, but tell him to call. My dad calls back in about 5 minutes and what's up? I said, Dad, I'm in. He said, you're in what? I said, Dad, I got in the NFL, they just called. Silence. He never said anything. 30 seconds go by, nothing. Now, I am an emotional mess half of the time, and so I pictured my dad being so proud that I was welled up with tears. Finally, after 30 seconds, he said, just remember one thing, son. And I said, what's that? And there was this long pause again. And again, I've got tears running down my eyes. And he has the nerve to say to me, just don't screw the 49ers. He hung up the phone and walked away from the phone. And then when I saw him that night, he said, I walked to the first tee, all my buddies were there. He said, I put my ball in the tee and I hit my longest drive I have ever hit in my entire life, which was his way of telling me finally that he was proud of me. And so I did the football thing on the field. I went in the office and ran the program for 9 years, was in New York, working for the NFL for 12. Ended up going to Fox to be in this commentator role, and we'll talk football in a little bit, but I just never felt that I accomplished anything. I mean, I really didn't. I mean, I look at my Wikipedia page, and it said that I was responsible for the officials going from knickers to pants. And I'm thinking, if that's my legacy, I am in real trouble. And really, what did it mean for me to go on camera and try to explain to somebody what's a catch or what's not a catch or what's in a big picture? It didn't mean anything. It didn't make me feel like that I was finding a purpose, that I was leaving things better. And so it led to what I do now and what most interests me. See, I like to think, and every year I drive to Oregon and back to go see some friends. And every time I get into a car for any length of time, I never turn on the radio. No music, no book on tape, no news, nothing. I just like to hear what's going on in my head. And unfortunately, and I get in trouble if I've lost friends for saying this, but we, the male population, don't do a very good job of this. And so I set out on a trip to Oregon, and I had just met the week before 6 homeless veterans in Southern California. And I'm driving up to Oregon, and I'm thinking about the shortage of officials. And then I'm thinking about, wait a minute, what do I look for in good officials when I work for the league? Courage, commitment, teamwork, competence. Wait a minute. All those things that a veteran would encompass. And so I said, I wonder if I could put this together and come up with a foundation to where we could support veterans when they transition out of the service and get them to officiate in their communities in any sport that they wanted to. So I'm driving, and now I'm thinking this might be a pretty cool idea. So I'm driving up there, and every time I drive there, I stop in Weed, California, and I fill up my tank at the Weed, California, and I'm pumping my gas, and I'm thinking about, what about a name? And then all of a sudden it like came to me, Battlefields to Ball Fields. And I thought, man, it's like I was on a high. I was on a high, and now I'm driving at 75 miles an hour in a 55 mile an hour zone, going up 97 to Bend. But I got there and told my friends, and they liked it. I went back to Fox and I told Fox, and they liked it. And now we have a foundation that is my life, that is my work, that is my value. It's made it all worth it. And hopefully, when somebody writes chapter 10 in my book, they'll write about this. I'm going to attempt to play this video if I can, although I already laid something on it. You want to run it for me? You can play it. I'm afraid to hit escape. Go ahead. Attempt was the key word. I laid this on it, and that's what came up. Oh, there we go. Maybe.
One more. It became my mission to serve. I wanted to make a difference if I could. It was a chance for me to maybe leave this place a little bit better than it was when I first got into it, and help those that need the help, the veterans, to get involved. Start a foundation that I could pay all of the expenses for veterans to get involved in officiating.
I've been officiating over 35 years, professionally over 15, and it's a passion of mine. I just love doing it. How do I get involved? How do I help you? And he goes, well, if there's ever anyone that gets involved with Battlefields and Ball Fields, I'll use you as a contact.
I went 9 months, day after day after day, applying for jobs. This came along and it gave me purpose. It gave me something to look forward to, and it let me stop focusing on not being productive. And as soon as the football season started, it was within 4 months of that, I actually found my first job.
I suffer from severe PTSD, and it was real hard for me even to come outside or do anything. I hadn't seen my oldest son, 19, being in the service, being gone. I didn't see him for a good 5 years. I was, divorce gets ugly, and all that. But he was told that I abandoned him, I left him, and that I died at war. It just got ugly. Then another brother of arms by the name of Rodriguez came up, called me, goes, hey, let's try this B2B. I'm like, I'm not doing no B2B. I don't even know what that is. He goes, this is Battlefield to Ball Field, it'll get you outside. You'll learn the game on a different aspect to help your son, so when he comes and lives with you. Meanwhile, all I like to do is pray that my son will wake up and one day come live with me. It took me 3 years to find my son. He was in Northern California. By the time I found him, he was already a freshman in high school. So by him playing football, I was like, man, maybe I could become a ref. I could get in that organization, and I could ref his game, and I'll be able to see my son. It gave me hope. And then when my son decides, when he wakes up and sees the truth that I did not abandon him, I did not leave him. I love every parent loves their kid. That he can see that I can help him, son. These are the things that refs look at. Don't hold, don't push. You can only touch from this point. Little things. Coaching him as a ref perspective. I just felt that that would bring me closer to my son. And now my son goes to Pueblo University in Colorado. He plays college football there. My ultimate goal is now I want to ref college,
This is a sustained diversion. So it's a diversion from those other problems that they've had. And I think that's made the difference in our foundation.
I don't know where I'd be. I don't know if I'd be here, actually.
I can't thank Mike Pereia enough for having me involved in it.
It's helped me save my life. It's helped me be a better father, a better husband.
And when I hear those stories, it makes us working in this foundation feel like we made a difference in people's lives.
Jameson Pilgrim, the one Pilgrim that you saw, who said he finally got a job after 5 months. We have a big contingent in the Buffalo, Rochester area, New York. That's where they are. And I went to have lunch with the whole group. There was about 14 of them. I flew there to have lunch and also to throw out the first pitch at the Rochester AAA baseball team game that night, which bounced about 20 feet short of home plate. But Jameson was with his fiancée. And they were out in the field. We were out in the field. It was a drippy day, if you saw that picture. And she pulled my shirt. And she leaned over and said, "You saved his life." I was scared to come home from work. And one day I came home, and he had a smile on his face. And he had a brochure. And he said, "This may be it." So I left the brochure on your table. If you know of any veterans, and I have more with me, if you know of any veterans or you work with any service, any veterans of foreign wars, we even do it for those that are active now. That's just information on how to join. And it's a simple process. They fill out an application. We just verify their military background as long as they live in this country and they're over 18 years old. We get them set up with their local organization. Right now, we have scholarships, 632 veterans and active members since we started in 2017. So thank you for listening to that. And so let's talk football. And football, to me, it's always more interesting when questions generate the discussion. I mean, I've been involved with football. Think about that. I mean, really, since 1970, I have been involved with football officiating. I mean, think about that. That's 52 years, and it has been good to me. I mean, it's not like I have regretted 1 second of it. It's a crossroads right now because there's such a shortage, even here in this area, there's such a shortage of officials. Nobody's signing up, and it's because of the treatment that they get, the abuse that they take. And they quit. If they do sign up, they quit after 1 or 2 years. Only 25% of the people that sign up to officiate now stay with it. So the average age of an amateur official right now is 54 years old and has risen every year for 10 straight years. And the average number of people signing up to officiate has decreased in the past 10 years. So there's a real dilemma, and all we're hearing about are these attacks and the abuse, and it's serious. I mean, there's a lot of reasons behind it, I know, but it's something that we have to attack. But for me, officiating has been a dream. And I went from on the field to in the office. So I had to make the calls. Then I had to deal with the calls that came from irate coaches and general managers and owners. I had to run the program. It was the hardest job, I think, certainly the hardest job I ever had. But man, I lived in New York for 12 years and there wasn't a single solitary day that I didn't wake up ready to go. Because when you love your work, it makes all the difference in the world. It beat the crap out of me. And I think I'm suffering for it now, but yet it was fantastic. And the state of the game, I mean, the state of the game is really good. The condition of the game is really good, depending on how you're judging it. If you're judging it financially, it's great. If you're judging it morally, it might not be. Yet people continue to pack the houses. The rights fees from networks like mine continue to go up and up and up. Live sports is about the only thing that people watch live now on TV that's not pre-recorded or taped or DVR'd or whatever they call it. And so it's in good shape. I mean, I'm tired of the Deshaun Watson conversations. I'm tired of the Jimmy Garoppolo conversations. And finally, we're getting to the point where games are going to start tomorrow night in preseason, and although they are crappy and worthless, at least we'll talk about somebody running for 75 yards and somebody scoring a touchdown. And so it's going to be good to have football back. I do college football too, more college than NFL. Actually, to tell you the truth, and I probably get fired by Fox. No, I wouldn't get fired by Fox, but I wouldn't have said this at the NFL when I was still working there. But I like college football better than I like NFL football. There's more passion to it. It's more of a game, less entertainment. I mean, NFL football has become a lot of entertainment. And so I do tons of college, and Fox is really active in college football. My first game is the 27th. The 27th, I have Northwestern and Nebraska from Dublin, Ireland. And I will be sitting in my little studio doing it from Los Angeles. I will not be going to Dublin, Ireland. But so I'm excited, and I will take questions if you want to ask me questions.
There we go. Great speech, I really appreciate it. 2 questions. What was the last position that you were on when you retired from the refereeing, officiating football games?
I was a side judge.
Okay.
So that's the deep sideline. I don't like where this is going.
No, the next question is, where were you last Saturday when Art McNally was the first referee inducted into the Professional Football Hall of Fame in Canton?
It was a tough decision. I was either going to be there or I was going to be having dinner with my wife for her 75th birthday in New York City. So the decision was made for me. So I was in New York City. I wasn't there, but thank God we got, yeah, smart man, yeah. Divorce is more expensive than a dinner. But I'm so happy for Art, so truly deserved, the most remarkable man I have ever met when it comes to officiating and life in general. Just fantastic guy. So we're all very proud of him.
Thank you. This has been a most engaging program. I really enjoyed it. I'm in the arts, so I really don't know why I'm up here asking you a question, but I wanted to know if you had a notable play that has stood out to you, something that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just happened. I'm getting into NBA, and I can't believe some of the plays that they do, and I would love to know more from the referee side. What goes through your head when you see somebody do something crazy?
Once you quit panicking, you figure out what you need to do. What play? A play standing out. Here's the deal with good officials. They never remember their good calls, but they take their bad calls to their grave. And my last game of my career, and I knew it was my last one because I was going into the office the following year, was a playoff game, division round, the Broncos playing at the Chiefs. My first and only playoff game, because I was actually only on the field 2 years before they brought me into the office, which the reason nobody really knows for sure. I just may have been so bad they moved me in there. But most easiest illegal contact call in the world to make in the third quarter, and that was the second quarter, beginning of the second quarter. It was a simple McCaffrey down and up, and the quarterback was in the pocket, and they chucked him, and I froze. Every expression you can think of. Swallowed the olive. Choked. I blew it. Absolutely blew it. And the interesting thing is, it went against Denver, and of course I had to be on Denver's sidelines. And so Mike Shanahan was just ripping me a new rear end. And the hardest part was I knew I deserved it because I knew I missed it. And then I went in the office. I never went back and looked at that play until 2 years ago. So that was 1997. And 2 years ago, I was at my sister's house, bored to death. I went on YouTube and tried to pull up the Kansas City-Denver playoff game in 1997, and up came the game. So I watched it, and then I watched the play. And football was covered so much differently then. They showed one replay and that was it. And the announcers, Mike Patrick and Paul McGuire and Joe Theismann, somebody, well, that could have been illegal contact. And then they went on to the next play. Instead of all of instant replay that we have now and all this stuff, which is another thing that I think is killing the game, but that's another story. I saw my brutal miss, but I at least felt better that they didn't make much of it on TV, but I will never forget that. And I have no idea what my good call would be because there weren't very many.
If it was entirely up to you, which rule would you change in the NFL?
I would change the pass interference rule. The pass interference rule, which if it happens beyond 15 yards, it's a spot foul. I see 40-yard penalties. I see Hail Marys thrown up in the end zone. And to me, it's the hardest call on the field to make, yet it carries the most yardage. An offensive pass interference is a maximum 10-yard penalty. There's no equity. There is no equity. And I understand that the NFL football's an offensive game. So I would change that, which we did in the USFL this year. I worked in the USFL and we tried new technologies and we tried new rules. That was one of them. And the interesting thing, nobody said a word. It was like it was normal. I mean, nobody made a big deal out of the fact that a pass interference call 40 yards down the field only got 15 yards. So that's the one. I always say, if I was commissioner for a day, people ask me, if you're commissioner for a day, what rule would you change? First of all, I don't want to be commissioner for a day unless I get 1/365th of Roger Goodell's salary, which then may convince me, but that's the one rule I'd change.
Mike, thanks for being here. Really enjoyed your presentation. And I want to confess, I have yelled at the television screen many times.
Okay, next.
I just, because at the same time, I also am amazed at how referees can react in real time to what's happening on a field or on the court and get it right so many times. And you actually touched on my question that I want to follow up on. What do you think about how the games have evolved, officiating has evolved so that the drive to get it right, replays, videos, seeing plays over and over and over again, going to New York, as opposed to sometimes refs get it wrong, sometimes they get it right. It should be part of the game. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, it came back in 1999 when I was in the officiating department, so I was all for it. But it started out, it was very, very streamlined. It was just ground, lines, and planes. And it's evolved, and now it's judgment calls. Did a guy possess the ball long enough for it to be considered a catch? And they look at it super slow motion, and the official looks at it at 1/26th of a second. When you see those sideline calls being made, it's 1/26th of a second. And half the time, they don't even know what they saw. And the big thing in football officiating, especially at the higher levels, is trust your instincts, not what you see. So I just think that replay has gone too far and it's taking too long. I liked it when it corrected mistakes when I was there, and I have to be careful with what I say now, because if I say let's throw out replay, then I probably throw out my job too, so I don't want to throw the whole thing out. But.
So Mike.
Great. So thanks for coming to speak to us. I'm wondering how how officials manage, or maybe the question is really how effective is the complaining that's done on the field by the various athletes and coaches and stuff. You see, it just seems to happen so much more in sports than it did 20 years ago. So how do you manage through that, and how are the referees coached, and how has that changed the game, do you feel, from a right and wrong call?
They're not affected by it. They're not affected by it at all. I mean, once you get to that level, you've been yelled at for so long that it doesn't really affect you, although I think it's disgusting. I think it's not, the officials aren't going to officiate any differently because some coach yells at them. Human nature, you might pay less attention to that coach, but you're officiating for grades, because that's what keeps you hired. That's what gets you the opportunity to go to a Super Bowl. So if you do something just to screw a coach that was getting on you and it's a wrong call, then you get a downgrade and there goes your chances. or at least a big portion of your chances. But I think the message we're sending is not good, that it's okay to do that. And I think that it's permeated all the way down to the lowest of levels, and that's been part of the issues. And I never in my life, in all my years on the field, never threw a flag on a coach. Never did. And now I'm 72 years old and I want to go back on the field a couple times. They all flag them every time they open their mouth, because I so dislike the fact of what they're getting away with.
Mike, thank you for the presentation. It's been delicious. What I really want to ask really is, why do referees screw the 49ers so much? But I'll ask a different question. The question is,
I would have thought you were a Raider fan if you were going to ask that question.
The game's changed quite a bit physically over the last 20, 30 years, especially in the high school and the lower. And even in the professional, it's changing. A lot less physical for obvious reasons. Do you think that will continue, and football, as we know it, will change more into kind of a rugby sport? Or is the physical violence, unviolence?
I don't think it'll change to a rugby sport, because I don't think you can take equipment off of players now. The liability would be gruesome. If you had them dressed with helmets and shoulder pads and then took them off, and then there's a serious injury, then I think the liability would be huge. I do think the game's safer than it's been in a long time. The problem is we don't know that. I mean, with all the rules taking the head out of the game, we really won't know the results of that until these players that are playing in the last decade have stopped playing for another 2 decades, and then their brains get examined. And so I do think it is a safer game, and I think it's a safer game on all levels. And so that I feel good about. The interesting thing, which I'm asked a lot, if I had a son, which I don't, or if I had a daughter, which I don't, but I allow them to play football, being as involved as I have been in the game, and my answer is not until he enters high school at the earliest, because there's enough study out there that the brains are not fully developed in the skulls of young kids to be taking shots to the head. But I do think it's really a safer game.
We heard your story, but where do people come from? Like, what's the curriculum or the background or the training that, gets a young man or woman into this profession?
Yeah, well, it's the minor leagues of the colleges. I mean, they took in 10 officials this year. They all came from the SEC, ACC. One came from the Pac-12, which may now be the Pac-10 and may go to be the Pac-6 soon. And the others came from the Big Ten. So it's all out of the college ranks, basically. And they're tracking people now early in their careers, really early. And they have what's called an officiating developmental list of about 60 people that they're watching. And the issues with officiating is, and they're good issues, diversity. They want diversity, and they want female officials. And so now 3, 2 have been added, 1 last year and another one this year. So they want the officiating program to reflect the program, the players program, the makeup of the players. And so that's all good stuff. But that was happening when I was back doing it in the 2000s. So most all their training.
Great talk today, great talk.
Thank you very much.
Your opinion about college athletes being paid?
I know your voice at my job. I mean, you have a voice, you even have a face. I don't like it. I actually don't like the fact that they're being paid, that college athletes are getting paid. That's why you see the Mike Krzyzewskis of the world quit, because they don't want to have to manage what is created when some players get $100,000 and another player's getting nothing. It has a real interesting dynamic to it. I happen to believe that most athletes that come out of college are very well educated, that they do go to school to play a sport. And so I think that's not good. But the NIL, the images and likenesses, namesake images, licenses, likeness, that combined with what Penn State just announced yesterday, that they have a union representative coming to speak to their football team about becoming a union. I think if they become a union, I get it, but I just don't know if it's time for that. I just don't see it. But that's my opinion. Most people would say it's a good thing. You're using their names, you're using it to make money, but I'm not a fan. Not a fan.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a picture right after. Okay, so let's get you guys out of here. Next week, you are going to want to come back. I know we had about 35 people on Zoom today. You may want to come back in the room next week. We're going to have the Navy Band Southwest Woodwind Quintet playing for us before the meeting, starting about noon here in the room. Then we are going to be hearing from Rear Admiral Ann Swap speaking on maintaining America's advantage at sea. For those of you who didn't know, next week is Navy Week for the very first time in San Jose. So we're really proud to be part of that. So I hope to see you all here, and let's keep the good times rolling.